Well, hello everyone again. Welcome to Nom Watch Review, part of Nom Talk Network. As you know, on this show, we review the latest film drop or throwback celebrating a milestone while eating and drinking our favorite movie snacks and drinks. And I'm so excited for this movie that we are going to be reviewing because it's all about the freaking food. And I'm so excited for it. I'm your host, Jordyn Orozco, and right now I'm going to replace this in a minute. Just a nice little Truly that I'm having, just kind of give a light little drink to my night. And ironically, so since the theme of this is food and it's in France, a little hint for everybody. I have some spaghetti on top of, okay, it's like a makeshift like bread thing because I didn't have any like bread to actually bake, but it's like on a hot dog bun, but it's spaghetti on a hot dog bun. And it's really good. So that's what I'm eating today. And I would love to introduce my guest for tonight. One I know and love from the things that we've done to my personal life. The other one I just met, but we have a weird connection, which we're going to talk about, and I'm so excited to talk about it. But first, let me introduce Alejandro. It is so good to see you. What are you doing? What are you eating? Who's on your shoulder? Is that a hint to what we're going to be talking about?
Yes, we are talking about Ratatouille. So I have my little buddy here, Emil, over here. So he's really chill at the moment. We made a crap load of pasta last night. Producer stuff was amazing, delicious pasta. Had it, so he might be a little dazed and confused from all that we had there. Speaking of food, though, a little shameless Taco Bell Dr. Pepper and shameless amount of tacos and burritos. So I will be munching on that. Hopefully, not as loud as you guys and I we discuss all this good stuff about the film. So I'm really hyped.
So I had a craving for Taco Bell and I was like, I'm talking about Ratatouille tonight. I can't be like, but now I'm like, I should have freaking got Taco Bell. So I'm so mad.
That's actually kind of on point because did nobody else when he showed burritos go millions and millions of burritos? That's where my brain went automatically.
Nice.
So I feel like burrito is appropriate.
That's great. And this wonderful individual who has some Ratatouille ears and Ratatouille in the back and probably Ratatouille all over the house is our wonderful and amazing person, Nikki. How are you? It's good to have you on.
I'm doing great. So
what are you having?
I am having, I have my whole spread. I'm just having kettle corn because I thought I was supposed to pick like a movie snack. So, but it's in my Ratatouille bowl that has like all the characters. I got it. Sorry. And that barking you hear is Remy. She's not a rat. She's an English bulldog, but
it's a big rat.
Yeah. But I got all this stuff actually when I went to Disney Paris to go on the Ratatouille ride. Oh. And then I'm drinking some sparkling water in my Ratatouille glass. I have some, it's actually California wine. I should have done a French wine. But I have some, I don't know if you guys can see. No, it's not very well, but this is a Ratatouille wine glass.
Oh, it's etched.
Yeah, it's really cool. It says Bistro Chez Remy. And then when it's time for me to refill, I will take my little Remy topper off of my wine to pour some more wine. So
cute.
And then I have my Ratatouille like framed picture in the background. And yeah, there's Ratatouille all over my house. So, you know.
So clearly we aren't short of a Ratatouille fan here. That's
just
all
a little bit.
Just a little. And just a little shout out to Reckless Vineyards. I love their wine. So yay for California wine.
They used to have their phone number on their cork before they became super big. And I texted them a picture of me drinking it. And I was like, oh, I love your wine. And they totally texted back. And then another time I drank it, I tried texting. And I think by that point they became super big and popular. And so they didn't respond. And now they took their phone number off the cork because they're like, way too big.
Calling.
Yeah, pretty much.
But also too, I remember when I first, this was like pre-pandemic. I first had my bottle of Reckless, and it used to be a little like wine restaurant that was here in Pasadena. And if you took a picture, because they have like a mustache, and you could like put the mustache on your thing and like take a picture, they would post it on their like Instagram or their website. And like I remember wanting to do that. I never did because it, you know, just happened. So but I know, right? I was like, stupid. Like, why didn't I do that? I don't know. Who knows? But in case any of you don't know what we're talking about, if you already not, we are talking about the film Ratatouille, which is celebrating its 15th anniversary this year, which is insane. And I have a small confession to make. I'm sorry, Nikki. This is my first time watching this yesterday. And let me tell you something. I'm so mad that I missed this film when it like came out, because it literally was a gem. Like it literally is like one of those things where you're like, why didn't like I catch this, right? But I think it was that weird phase where like Disney and Pixar was like coming out with all these things, and like it, you know, so you know, I'm really happy I got to like host this film. And Steph was like, do you want to do this film? And I'm like, sure. I've never seen it. And she's like, what? You've never seen it? And that's usually the reaction I get from like other people. And they're like, you haven't seen Reddit? I'm like, no. And then they're like, okay, you have to do it. Because, you know, here at the Disneyland park, you can get Ratatouille, and it's the magnetic like a meal.
Yeah.
And it just like sits there, and I see people with it, and I'm like, I probably should watch that. So Q's in the chat. He says, I'm drinking the cheap version of Dr. Pepper now. Alex and I just ate a chicken patty sandwich. Oh, and then he says, we'll get to this later, but he says he rates this movie 5 out of 5 buckets. And I love the story and the animation, right? So I think we should just get into it, since apparently we're going to have a lot to talk about. So for me, like watching this film for the first time, especially like in like 15 years later, right? Like if I watched this when I was like, it was younger, I think it would, you know, be different. But watching this film 15 years later, I didn't feel like there was anything different about the impact, about like what the story was supposed to say. And I didn't feel like there was anything, you know, that I feel like it could have improved on. And I think for me, like coming up to this film, I was like, oh, you know, people love this film. There were people in my life that have watched it, and they always talk about it. And I'm like, that's cute. I've never seen it, right? Like, and you, all you know is like, it's a rat that cooks, right? And then you start watching it, and like you start to realize, like, right, with like the trailer and everything else, like you think the movie is going to be about Linguini, and it's not. Like the film is specifically about Remy, and like the journey that Remy goes through in order to fulfill his dreams. And like he wants to, you know, I thought it was like really cool, first of all, how rats are considered like pests and pestilence, and like they're not supposed to be in the kitchen. And then this film basically is like, oh no, like Remy's a cook. Like from jump, like he can sense things. He's an extra like good smeller, and like he's got this like extra sense. And rats are like, you're weird. Like we just eat anything, but like you're specific. Okay, fine. And then obviously he gets lost. He goes into he finds out that he's actually in Paris, and he has a taste for the finer foods, and it's amazing, and it is a wonderful adventure that we go through this entire time. And I hated the villains. I hated them so much. I like watched this film, and I was like, this dude's an asshole. You're an asshole. Like you're such a fucking asshole. And at the end, I'm like, oh, you're cute. And so I think this film for me, like leading up to it, I had no expectations, and I was extremely surprised with this film. I'm like, even to this day, 15 years later, it matches like the feel that I think that it came out with originally. So we'll start with Nikki. Obviously, you're a super fan. What were you thinking watching this film, like when it came out, if you watched it when it came out, versus like now, versus like you're such a big fan? What are your thoughts on this film?
So first of all, I understand, even though it upsets me when people haven't seen it, I understand how that happened.
Sorry.
So that was, it came out senior year of high school for me. There wasn't a lot of publicity for it. And you're right, like it was kind of like this new, like, oh, Pixar is becoming a bigger thing, like it's part of Disney. And when I first watched it, for me it was like immediately I connected to it on a very deep level for me. And you know, a lot of people base their film preferences off like, oh, you know, cinematography and audio. And I'm an audio engineer. I do freelance audio engineer work. I've done a bunch of, you know, short films, commercials, things like that in Los Angeles on a little break since I moved to San Francisco. But so I understand, you know, all the different elements that people use. In my opinion, animation doesn't mean that it's less artistic, doesn't mean it's less smart, actually, less intelligent. I personally believe, one, this film is timeless. I mean, you could watch it as a kid and you could think, oh, you know, this is a really cute movie. I thought the rat was really adorable. And then you could watch it as an adult and it brings in the whole idea of like nostalgia and what things can bring nostalgia to you and what nostalgia can mean in your life. And obviously they use food in this example. And that for me is something huge. When I was younger, I had the choice. Did I want to be a chef or did I want to be a singer? I became a singer. I was always a singer. But to this day, I have a love of food and I love to cook for people, and the look on people's faces when they eat a really good bite of food. I mean, there's nothing like it. Look at him chowing down. He's probably going to have that face just from Taco Bell, you know, but like Alejandro's just down. Is it the burrito or the taco?
Burrito.
Yeah. See, there we go. Imagine if Chef Cousteau made that, or Remy, but you know, so it's timeless in the sense that children and adults could both enjoy it, but it's also timeless in the sense that from 2007 till now, it still feels like it could have been released currently. You know, it doesn't feel like it's missing any sort of up-to-date animation. The composer, Michael Giacchino, I mean, he's the one who's composing. Oh, sorry, Remy's trying to get up here. He's the one who's composing the music for Thor: Love and Thunder. So even he is like massively relevant to this day. And it's just, I mean, I can go on and on. The music, the artistry, Patton Oswalt, come on, you know, like he's obviously one of the greatest voice actors of his time and probably of our future as well. So in my opinion, I mean, Ratatouille just has everything. And then another thing about the music, first of all, I just want to take a second to talk about Michael Giacchino, because, you know, he started like in Universal, came to Disney Pixar. He did The Incredibles. He won an Academy Award for Up. He did Coco, and then he did Ratatouille. Plus he's done like most of the Spider-Man releases, the new ones. That guy is like pure genius, because you take any film he's done and he puts you in the mindset of that film. So he's the one who, the Marvel opening credits, that like opening scene, that's his composition. So right away you get put into the feeling of like, ooh, it's a, you know, hero movie. I'm about to watch a superhero movie. Coco, you know, how do you go from superhero movie so flawlessly to a Hispanic film? And then Up, but then Ratatouille, every time I listen to that soundtrack, I want to go to Paris. I feel like I'm in Paris, and I've been to Paris. So, you know, specifically for this reason, and it feels just like you're there. You know, the music for me, I think, was the first, being a musician, like the first thing that caught me. It took you away from your couch, the theater, wherever you were, and it put you in Paris, you know. And then the artists, the Imagineers, did a fantastic job with all the art in the film. And then, you know, you've got your actors, perfect. And then the storyline itself, like, you know, how you were saying that you love the villains. I love that they kept a villain who stays bad, and then they had a villain who redeemed himself. You know, like they kind of included everything in there. There was even a cute little love story, you know, and then there was an independence story too. Like you got all of it in one film. And, you know, and then Remy, like who doesn't relate to having a passion like that and feeling that struggle of like, do I belong here? And that's something I can relate to a lot with music, being a musician, especially like being a curvy Latina singer, like in the US. You know, I'm not light skin, light hair, blue eyes, whatever. I definitely have a different look than what people are used to. And you find yourself kind of like second guessing, do I belong here all the time? And Remy's super inspirational. You know, he hit those points of, am I going to lose this? Like, how am I going to find my way? But the passion is what mattered to him. You know, it's like really a beautiful film. And also, do you not just want to eat everything he makes? So,
yeah, it was so interesting because I was watching this. So I was sort of like watching this film intently at work, and sorry, and like nobody at work is watching this, but like, you know, but I was watching this at work and I was like trying to do work at the same time, but then I would like fall back to my computer and I was like doing that. And then I was like, it like, I started it like right when I got there, and the entire time, and it's like almost a 2 hour, it's like an hour and 45, hour 50 minutes, from like 9 to about like almost, what was it, like 11. I was hungry the entire time watching this film, because you're like, from the moment, like, even though they're rats, like the food that they're eating looks so delicious. And even like when Remy would go and like get the finer foods, because he was like, no, I don't eat that because it smelled bad. He would like, and I was like, I just want to eat everything they're ingesting. And then finally, when they go to the restaurant and then they get obviously those foods, I'm like, I'm allergic to shellfish and I want to eat those scallops. Like, it was that kind of movie. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. But let's go to Alejandro. Alejandro, what did you think about this film? Obviously, you know, you have a rat on your shoulder. Like, what did you think?
Honestly, when it comes to this film, the first thing that comes to mind is in 2007, I'm in Hawaii. I'm going to culinary arts school at the moment. I'm eating a Jack in the Box. I got a 6-pack little chicken nuggets going on, and I'm sitting in the back seat of my old 91. It was a Toyota Sentra, and I'm looking outside of the window, and it's kind of a little foggy, you know, windy and rainy, and there's me and this other culinary graduate and my ex at the time being, we're all sitting there just talking, telling each other stories. We look at the far right window and we see Ratatouille on a sign out there on the highway. And they keep on telling me, they're like, hey man, you make that your motivation. Let a rat be your motivation. see where this goes. So, you know, just being hyped up, you know, seeing that for at least an advertisement for at least, you know, 3 to 6 months out there. And then actually having the ability when you're going to culinary arts school to actually go ahead and experience a film like this. Both of you hit it nail on the head. The visuals are amazing. The sounds in the kitchen, the vibe is literally what you feel in the back of being a line cook, a line chef. I don't have the title of chef, line cook. It just, you know, hearing the movements of the metallic sounds of the whisk or the knife or the spoons going against the wok or the actual stainless steel pans and so forth. All legitimate. It's fantastic. I don't know, big fan. And that, I'm a sucker for anything that's happens to be a rodent. I love rodents, and that the fact that like rats are super intelligent. So actually having one such as Remy or Emile, well, more on Remy, having such a diverse palate is insane, you know? So the fact that he can tell between 3 different style blue cheeses according to how old the cheese itself is, according to fantastic. I believe Nikki mentioned it earlier. I was unfamiliar with Pixar films at the time being. And it was very, very kind of one-sided with the animation for me. I did come off with watching Finding Nemo, but you know, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this is totally not what I expected. It was more of a pleasant surprise. I did not expect myself to root for the villain. And when you mention it here and there, and even when you talk about, you know, something about Iago in general being, you know, the critic, the food critic in general, I really, really hesitate when I call him a villain, because it's more along the lines of he's a necessary evil that people enjoy and trust. And that's how, I guess, legends are made, so to speak, not to be too cliche. But I mean, you know, if he takes something and says it's bad and, you know, turns it around in 180, it could be fantastic. So there's been many occasions where, you know, it's a borderline gray villain that you end up rooting for. You're not too sure, you want to see more of. And then definitely the family of Remy and Emil. God dang, all of them are great. They're disgusting, fluffy, and cute. I mean, it's like what they do is just, being the fact that they're rats and they want to live. I just find it humorous of how supportive eventually they are of Remy. So, yeah, that's what I got so far.
Can I say two things?
Yes.
So firstly, going back to kind of like the ego thing and like how he's like the necessary villain. So we all want to cook like Remy, right? Like we all want to be able to do what he does. But let's be honest, the person we want to be in that film is Ego. Because literally he gets to just eat all this fucking fantastic food all the time and stay skinny, might I add. Drink like such good wine that he could be like, no, thanks, I don't want this one because it's like so like new, and then he writes about it. Like okay, one of my friends is watching right now. I know because he texts me about my ears. And he's gonna laugh at this comment, but I'm Yelp elite. So I spend a lot of time writing reviews. Yeah, Frank, that was for you. But I spent a lot of time writing like reviews, and sometimes I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I actually think about Anton Ego, and I'm just like, man, like, why can't my reviews be like, I just want it to be something that, I get paid to go to these restaurants and I get to just eat all this like crazy, awesome food. So like, really, I mean, even if he's like the villain, like you still love him. You want to be this villain, It's not like, I feel like there's tons of Disney villains that you're like, no, screw that person, they suck. But Ego, you're just like, even his coffin-shaped office, that's so cool, So,
that was my thing. That was one of the things that I noticed, is that when you go into his office, it's shaped like a coffin, and I was like, so he's the death of restaurants, like, but that's who they portray him as, and then you see him. And you see the color of his face and you're like, oh, you're the personification of death in this film, right?
Or he's the death of bad restaurants.
Which is true, absolutely. But then when he tries the ratatouille at the end, his face gets flushed. Mm-hmm. And like he looks like a human, and you're like, oh.
And he has that scarf on.
Yeah.
He's like more accessorized. It's like you're right, actually.
That chiseled jawline for days is actually smiling.
Yeah. You do notice a massive difference. Like even just his demeanor. My favorite part is when he turns around and he goes, surprise me. And he has the biggest smile on his face. And I like that part gets me every time. Like I almost cry every single time I see that. It's not even the part where he eats the ratatouille and gets taken back to the childhood. It's when he says, surprise me to Remy. And he's that happy and comfortable and confident, and that he's just like in this environment he loves, and he gets to do what he loves, and he's living like his best life, being fed by an adorable rat who makes the best food in the world.
But then like, it's also Remy going like, I got you. And then goes and like makes the thing. Yeah. There was like, I think it was, there were two parts in this film that I was like, oh shit, you got me. And then Q said something in the chat, so I'll read it after. The first one was when his dad said, or when Remy said to his dad, change his nature, Dad. And I was like, okay, like that, okay. And usually I like a Disney film if there's like a quote like that, and I'm like, shit, because a lot of these kids films, like it's just like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like every episode had a meaning in it where if you didn't catch it, like as an adult, like you couldn't grow, and like it had a lesson in it. But this film, I was like, oh my God. And then it was that moment where like you hear Remy telling the rest of the story about what happened to Ego, and then he's like, oh no, but don't worry about it. Like he's the one that's like financing this whole place, right? And then he's like, okay, I'll see you all later. And there's like a little like rat restaurant, but then he goes into the thing and he sees Colette, and she's like, okay, it's time. And he's like, okay. And then it was that moment I think that you had where I was like, where he's just smiling. He's having a fucking good time. Did anybody notice, by the way, before Ego got happy, that he had downed 2 bottles of wine in the restaurant? I was like, my boy, my boy.
Yeah.
But then he's like smiling, and he's just like, it's fine. And then he cheers at somebody that's in the restaurant, like that's probably a local. And I'm like, this is the feel, right? Like this is the feel of like somebody that's happy and truly investing in this. And then you're right, like the part where he's like, surprise me. And he's like, okay, like I can probably get you to like this. And it was like those moments where I was like, wow, like that was very for a Disney film and for a Pixar film, like that was very impactful for me. I think too, like I also was the generation that was like Toy Story came out in like 95, and then you had like Toy Story 2, which came out in 99, and then you didn't have Toy Story 3 come out until 2010. But then I like there were all these other films that were coming out because like Disney and Pixar were coming out with their films, and then like Disney was coming out with their films. And then also too, to be fair, like this film came out the year I graduated high school. I wasn't interested in like
Same
Disney
year.
films. Wait, no. So I graduated 2006.
Oh, it came out in 2007. Didn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I graduated in 2006. So the year after, I was not interested in seeing a Disney film. Like I was like, ow. Like I was doing what I want to do. Like I was, and so that was probably why, like for me, like I didn't see this film. It wasn't like something where I was like, I need to go watch that, right? Versus some of the other films that came out later, and I was like, okay, cool. And then you have like all the Marvel films that were like barely starting to come up, but like you heard them, right? And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can go watch that. And so, anyway, Q said, Nikki, same. I am deaf in one ear and had few disabilities. Had a few disabilities in school throughout, and started playing drums when I was 12 years old. Slowly getting into poetry and lyrical writing around high school. There were times that I felt out of place, and especially in the local music scene, but I'm still here doing my thing, and I gained respect from my friends and peers. I just so this happened to the last film that I did a review on, which was oh my god, I can't remember. Oh my god, I can't remember. Now I'm losing it. It's leaving my head. Anyway, it was a film that I did, and somebody had a really unique and awesome sort of like I felt like I belonged in this film type of reaction to it. And I feel like those types of films are genuine and beautiful to have, especially like in the world where you can just be like, I felt something with this character. And so like this is my favorite film because of this reason, right? And like here on this channel and here like what we do is like we connect obviously food with like things that we geek out on and things that we're nerds about. And I think it's just beautiful that people can connect in a way, where people can say, yeah, like this is something that like made a huge impact in my life. And so I think that's really beautiful. Let's go to the voice actors because I really want to talk about them. Because after this film, so what I do usually for an animated film, I don't normally look up who's doing what and what's their voice unless it's advertised because it kind of if I know who's doing the voice, it puts them in a box for me. And I don't like to do that, especially when I'm watching the animated film. And then after I watched this film, I looked up the voice actors and I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, and to be fair, a lot of these voice actors were older at the time. Like these were older voice actors. These weren't young voice actors doing it. And I think doing sort of like a film like this where it's based around animal and like it's based around animals where you don't necessarily like you can't really personify an animal in a way where you can personify like a person like Linguini or Colette. But even those two, so for example, like Brad Garrett did Gusteau, who like I didn't fucking know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's great.
Isn't that crazy? Like everybody loves Raymond. Brad Gusteau.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? Then you have Lou Romano, who did Linguini. You have Patton Oswalt, who did Remy, which we've all discussed. Ian Holm, who, if you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the original one, played Frodo Baggins. He was Skinner. You have people like Peter O'Toole, who did Ego, who I was like, what the like Peter O'Toole, right? Like, and then Jeannie and Garofalo, who did Colette, who's like one of my favorite actresses of all time. I love her. I could talk about her all day.
Comedic genius.
Will Arnett, who did Horse, right? You have all these people who just were in this film, were like doing these voiceovers, and you don't even know, that they were doing it. And it was funny. I know, Nikki, you had said earlier, like you have a Patton Oswalt vibe, and I was like,
dude, you really do. Like
so
like when you came on the screen, I had to take a second because I was like, you have so maybe it's just because it's via Zoom, but your face has a lot of his features, but you're also, your demeanor, the way you kind of move, the way you talk move when you talk, even just like the way you talk itself reminds me so much of Patton Oswalt. So like I freaked out there for a second because I was like,
it's Remy.
I was like, there's no fucking way in hell that like, how is this guy doing this, podcast, and like we're doing Ratatouille, and I was like, young Hispanic or young Patton Oswalt, like what the heck? Like, are you serious? I was like, but you have this like presentation about you that really like looks like Patton Oswalt to me, in the best ways,
Well, thank you. I am not him, but thank you for that. That gives me hope.
I mean, he's a genius, so
I love it. No, I've seen and loved Patton Oswalt in other forums and other roles and in other things, so that's a compliment, so thank you. And so I was like, really?
I mean, he's so dynamic if you think about it, like, because here he is in this Pixar film for children, for families. He does such a like heartfelt performance. He really like helps deliver the message of acceptance and of passion and never giving up on your dreams. But then if you see him in other TV shows and films or whatever he's in, like that guy can be crude, he can be like really crude. I'm watching Modern Family because right now I'm working from home. I'm trying to like get back into, I'm supposed to be getting back into singing and audio engineering, but I'm kind of like dragging my feet a little bit, setting my home up here in San Francisco. But I was watching Modern Family and Patton Oswalt came on in an episode. I was just like, what the heck? Every time I see him now, I have that reaction because I know like when he comes on, it's going to be great. Like it's going to be a good, however many, like 10, 15 minutes I get of Patton Oswalt, or in that case, in Ratatouille's case, like 2 hours of Patton Oswalt. He's just like, this movie, I feel like put him on the map, even though he was kind of already on the map, but it just showed his range, and it showed really that he is somebody who like you need to watch out for, because I mean, he could do anything really,
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, what did you think about the voiceover acting? I feel like you would have like a unique perspective on that. But like you said earlier too, like you didn't know who did the voice acting before you like looked it up, right?
No, totally. I mean, we're talking about like talent. It's kind of an understatement for me. I mean, you got Will Arnett, Patton Oswalt. The fact that Patton Oswalt for me was a big portion for me with Meet the Goldbergs. Huge portion for that show to me. So, actually to see that development, going from a classic storyteller to continuing to do that, but from a first person perspective, or a first rat perspective, so to speak, on there. If we're going to go into like names again, like Brad Garrett, looking at him, everybody loves Raymond. I couldn't think of anything else. So actually to have, a lovable character such as that, of him portraying, not that he's not a lovable person in general, but he portrays a smart ass or egotistical asshole, so to speak. So to actually see him not portray that and be such a kind-hearted individual, or like, shining star, so to speak, or getting that, 4-star back, so to speak, was really cool. I did enjoy that. But speaking of villains, coming into it's ultimately, once again, I really can't call the villains. Every single voice actor in this movie or in this project to me was ultimately either an anti-hero or just perhaps happened to be a person at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, if you to look at this film, there's so much classic hero tales with it, considering where Remy started off with, having a passion of what he wants to do, pursuing it, classic hero running into a situation where he has to go ahead and make a decision ultimately to alter his lifestyle to pursue his dream. So the fact that he got a huge rat that essentially is a human mech driver cooking in the kitchen is probably one of the most best things possible. I don't know how many times I obsessively watch over TikTok videos now of somebody joking around by holding somebody's hair walking in the kitchen and slapping somebody against the head. So just get it from the classic Remy perspective of it, of his directional concepts. But I digress. When it comes to voice acting, it was fantastic. I and like you said, I wasn't very familiar with him at the time being, but the voices were perfect. I can't imagine anyone else. And if so, I mean, heck, I can see it bring some more wholesomeness to the project. But other than that, the voice acting was phenomenal.
Yeah, Q says Patton Oswalt killed it as Remy. He gave Remy such a character. That part was so perfect for him. And I agree. I feel like even at the beginning, I didn't know what to expect. It opened and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like all of a sudden you see Remy breaking out of the freaking window with a book and you're like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it's Patton Oswalt's voice. But obviously I didn't know it was Patton Oswalt at the time. And I was like, oh, this is the story about the rat. And I'm like, cool, let's see where this goes. And it just ended up being a fantastic story, not just about like just the personification of this wonderful rat, of this wonderful individual, but like how, and I will say, I was a little disappointed with Linguini. I think the way that his character sort of played out in the beginning, I feel like it was a little too like, I don't know, there wasn't like a past given. It was like it was almost just like, hey, here's a character and he's really squeamish and he doesn't know what to do. And I get that that was his like character, but like I would have loved like seeing maybe just a little bit of 5 minutes of just like, hey, where did you come from, Linguini? Right? Like, how did this get introduced? And then you find out that he's spoiler alert, everybody, 15 years late, but spoiler alert. You find out that he's Gusteau's son, and then you're like, wait, and then you're like, oh, but but you didn't got it, but you didn't know, right? And so and then you find out that Remy's going to be the one that's going to be the actual cook, and he's we all go through that story of like, well, I did it, it's me, but I had help, but I'm not really going to say who it is. And then Remy, they obviously fight and all that stuff, and then but I feel like in the beginning Linguini I was like, man, they could have done so much with Linguini. But I feel like later on, sort of in the film, it developed and it kind of made sense to where like he was sort of the waiter. Remy was the cook, obviously. And then it was Colette who was like, cool, like I'll be your assistant, I'll be your sous chef. Like it's fine. By the way, a lot of these terms I learned from our friend Kelly, Steph, who's our producer, Kelly. And I love you, Kelly. Shout out to Kelly because she has been like a line chef. She's been working, in restaurants for a really long time. So some of these terms she said that. So, and I know Alex, I think, or Alejandro, I think Kelly. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have to disagree with you on the Linguini thing. And here's why. So Linguini, for all intents and purposes, is a loser. Like straight up a loser. And we have to remember this is still Pixar. They cannot show how much of a loser he is, but in the perfect ways they did. They showed kind of how clumsy he is. And like, I use the term loser loosely because let's be honest, like, no, he's out there doing his thing. It's like what society would label him. But at the same time, who the heck really is a loser? Like, he's doing the best he can. But that's kind of how they're portraying him. I think had they gone farther with that, it could have cast a negative light on Linguini, as opposed to kind of keeping him as this character that you are introduced to, who's like, very awkward. He's having a hard time. He's struggling. We know his mom just died. He clearly doesn't really know what to do with that, because when he's explaining it to Skinner, he doesn't even say his mom died. He actually says like, oh, she's good. And, the sous chef has to say, oh, she died, and it's kind of this thing where he's like this lost little kid. He doesn't have a dad. So, oh no, let's not get into dad stuff because, but he doesn't have a dad. And I feel like his journey is more the important part than like his past, because if we go into his past, then I feel like it's going to make him look extra sad and kind of weak, you know, as bad as that sounds. But here's this guy needs a job, and he finds essentially his best friend. He finds his purpose in life. And it's not just being like a meat suit for a rat to cook, you know. He finds that he can connect to people, which was very obvious to me that he couldn't do before. He found his way out in the world, and he found his dad. Like, as crazy as that is, he found his legacy. And I think if they had gone too far back into who Linguini was, this guy who, as he said himself, you know, has had so many jobs, he's been fired from so many jobs. Like, I don't think his life would have had that much to add to it. But to start at this point and get to see him grow and advance in life and go through this really incredible and quite fantastic journey, I think I have to disagree with you. I think they did a great job with that. I think that starting him off with more of a background of how sad his life was would have been maybe a bit too much for this film, you know?
Sure. Yeah. And I think for me, it was like, I think the difficult thing was it was hard for me to believe that like somebody could just automatically get even the smallest job at like one of the most pretentious restaurants in France just based off of like, okay, like it's a letter, but then he was like, oh, he's here to be the trash guy. And then it's like, okay, you're the trash guy. But I think too, like I have to put aside my perspectives and just be like, okay, cool. You're right. Like he was quote unquote, in a sense, a loser. Right. And it's like, he's going to start out as the trash guy. And then obviously Skinner knew that this guy was the son of Gusteau at first and was like, I'm going to do everything to not make him a success. And then he meets Remy, who's like, I'm going to make like in a sense, I'm going to make you a success, but in a way where it's like, I'm also going to live my dream, but also like secretly like make you better than what you really are. And I think at the end that really like shows, right? Where it's like, we've both made each other the person that we probably wanted to be without necessarily saying that to each other. And I think this film definitely represents that in a way where it's like both of these underdogs who are like, there's more for us out there and there's more for us to see sort of like what we're doing. It shows when they're like, okay, you know what? Like we brought out the best in each other, and you're right. Like they're best friends. We brought out the best in each other, and we are better together than we are separate. One of the things I do want to talk about, though, I don't know if you noticed this, and I don't know if this was like an ode to anything, but there was a moment where I don't know if it was when they were on the moped or on their motorcycle, or if it was when Remy had the documents and was running away from Skinner. But did you see the mime on the bridge? And did it sort of remind you of Bon Voyage from The Incredibles?
That was Bon Voyage.
I know. I was like, that's Bon Voyage.
So it was when, oh my gosh, like bring up any scene to me and I'll tell you what it is. It wasn't when they were on the moped, and it wasn't when Remy had the documents. It's actually during the montage of right after Colette and Linguini kiss for the first time. So it's when they're roller blading or they're roller skating across the bridge. So I think they're like next to the Thames, and they're roller blading, skating. I don't know, whatever it is. Anyways, that's when they pass Bon Voyage, and it is in fact Bon Voyage. It's like something that's like known. That's the Easter egg there. And I love that about Pixar films. I love all the Easter eggs that show up. There's also the other one. I think Doug shows up in this one.
Yes.
I think, yeah, his shadow shows up. And it's in the scene when Remy he just discovered, or like Gusteau just said, hey, go look where you are. Right. And he's like, go look up. And Remy's like going through all the scenes and stuff. And in one point, there's a shadow of a dog that's barking, and that's Doug. So, and actually, I am going to extra nerd myself out on this one. There is a Disney pin of that scene. I am a massive pin collector. I have a ridiculous collection of Ratatouille pins, and there's a pin that comes in this like circular box, and it is Doug, and it's like the series is like crossover Pixar, and it's Doug's shadow with Remy.
That's cute.
Yeah, wow. It's a really cool pin. I have it downstairs. I almost brought some of my pins up, but I was like, oh god, no, I can't do it. But I think I have like 50 to go till I'm complete, but they're really difficult to find. But yeah, so I love that Pixar does all these crossovers, that they are connecting these films in different ways, partially because it gives fans the opportunity to make their fan theories. It gives us the opportunity to engage more. And even like years afterwards, as another film comes out, it's like, hey, that's from Ratatouille. Hey, that's from Monsters, Inc. Hey, that's from Incredibles. And I love all the fan theories of like who these different characters could be and how they could connect. And as more films come out, the idea that like these worlds are all connected in Pixar, and there's a way that we can potentially prove it. I'm waiting for the day when we're like 60 years old, and you know, whoever the head of Pixar or Disney is comes out and they're like, so here it is, here's the whole map of how it all connects. And like, yes, you know, Boo is, was it Edna? Who's Boo supposed to be? There's like some fan theory about who Boo is.
Hypothetically speaking, she's supposed to be related to her.
Yeah. And like all these like cool different things, like you know, I mean, Toy Story, that's an easy one to connect into pretty much any of them, because because those, I mean, the toys show up constantly. But so I love how they did that. And yeah, they did it at least twice in Ratatouille. I think those are the only 2 times, but even though I've watched it like 100 times, I feel like I could still find more things. I'm so sorry. Remy.
You see, I have to say something though too, because both of you bring up an excellent point. Nikki, you mentioned earlier, or you're mentioning right now, but Jordyn, you like hit it on the nose. I think they did it. I think the only fault per se that I see the development with Linguini is it was rushed a little too much, in my opinion. Like, I fully believe that he was a great person to be a disaster in a sense in the film, in a sense, or be that person that has some issues that he has to work through. But I believe his kiss with Nicolette was a little too fast in that aspect of it. I believe how his, you know, goes from trash person to being, you know, a sous chef into a line cook, to, you know, going back and forth before he even gets the title, and all of a sudden being one of the head cooks of the areas. And yes, we do understand that it takes work in the real life to get there. Yes, we understand that these things take effort, but I do think he kind of streamlined it really quickly. However, I can't complain about it too much, because we wouldn't have gotten things as fast as we gotten it. We wouldn't have had a great fluidic storyline at the same time. So it's interesting hearing both of you bring up these theories, and not only theories, but actually bringing up hardcore evidence of how things seem to be rushed or quickly, or things couldn't be differently. If they were, it just wouldn't be the same. I fully agree. It's crazy to see that how some things had to be rushed, in my opinion, in order to make things a little more fluidic, but that's just my take.
And and to be fair, it wasn't Remy that went quick. It was, it wasn't Linguini that went quick. It was Remy.
Yeah,
right?
That was control.
Remy was the cook.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And,
but I mean,
go ahead.
Like Linguini is, and I actually had this discussion with someone recently. Linguini technically is a secondary character. So I think the fact that his storyline went fast, although some people might consider him a like primary character, and in a way he is, they're a team. They had to pick kind of who to centralize the movie around, and it was Remy. And so Remy's background is the one that was featured, and Remy's journey was the one that was important. And I think they did the best they could with shining a light on, you know, where Linguini comes from. I think they did a great job actually with dropping hints about his background. You see his apartment. He mentioned how he loses jobs all the time. You knew about his mom. You could tell just from the letter, just from the way people reacted to the letter, that was the love of Gusto's life. You know, that was the woman he loved more than anything in the world. And I think they did a really good job at that without taking away from the journey that Remy was going through, and still giving Linguini the secondary plot that he deserved, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, that was one of the things that I was like I said in the beginning, where I was like, oh, like you think it's going to be about one thing, and then you watch the film and you're like, oh, this is a movie about an amazing rat that can cook and has a great sense of smell and has a great freaking personality overall and wants to do good for not just like his family, but for the world. And I think relatable too is like when you want to pursue your dreams and when you want to pursue something that's bigger than yourself, like a lot of times there's like two worlds that you have to choose between, right? Like but also like the fact that his family came out to like support him eventually and was like, oh, is this what you want to do? Awesome. Like, we're going to be here for you. Like, we're going to show up. One of my favorite scenes was when they're all freaking cooking in the kitchen and the health inspector shows up, because I used to work for a flea market, and we like had food, and like health inspectors would show up and it would be a freaking nightmare, right? Like it would be an absolute nightmare. But then it's like Linguini's out serving the customers on like roller skates, and like it's just freaking rats in the freaking kitchen. And he like everybody pauses and is like, what's going on? What's going on? And then Remy's like, get him. And then he's like, all right, Team Delta, go. And like the fact that they have teams, there's like Alpha, Beta, like, and then it's just hilarious. And then I think that was like probably one of my favorite scenes of all time. And then they freaking hog tie him and throw him in the fridge.
The car being covered in all the rats, like, tell me that when you were watching that scene, you weren't imagining that happening. And like, of course, like part of you is like, oh, how cute. But the other part of you is like, oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Cause like, I think the other thing too, and I think the thing that like, so I'm like with you, Alejandro, like I have always loved rodents. Mm-hmm. I've had hamsters. I love mice. I love rats. I've held rats. I've kissed rats. I love them. I think they're the cutest things. So I don't have a problem with them. I know, like my mom hates rats, hates mice, and I'm like, why?
I
like
love their
cute.
Tails. Like
they're just so
their
cute.
tails are must have too.
So
they actually balance with those suckers. They're brilliant with tails. It's funny.
Yeah, I think for people, with this film, like I don't want to say it dispelled all the myths, but I feel like it sort of captured a moment where people would be like, oh, well, maybe rats are smart, right? Like, which they are, like you said, right? Oh, like maybe we shouldn't like, but it also is like parallel to how we treat certain people specifically when within our like service industry, right? Like within our food industry, right? Where it's like we treat certain people that aren't worth our time like trash, but also too like just it was weird, like all the parallels that I was seeing in this film while watching this. And I think in the end, I think overall I loved it. I think it was just a fantastic film. I'm really sad I didn't see it when I did. And you're right. I think you're right, Nikki. For me, like if this film came out now, I'd still be like, this is probably one of the greatest films that Disney and Pixar ever came out with. Like, and the animation was great. Like, even like it was. I feel like it was comparable to like The Incredibles, and it was comparable to like Toy Story, the new ones, and everything that's been coming out like with Pixar. Like, I just feel like it was it's just a staple. It's a staple of the Pixar animation film genre. I feel like, yeah.
I think it's better, but, and like, you know, people can agree to disagree, but for example, Toy Story, shoot, are we on 5? Like, which one was the most recent one that came out? You know, the most recent one, you know, I'm like a crazy Disney fan. I have my like Mickey Mouse ring that I wear every day of my life. And I personally think that Ratatouille is better than, I mean, it's my favorite movie in the world, but I think it's better than a lot of the Pixar films that I've seen. And of course, even Disney films, because I feel like sometimes the messages can be a little campy. Sometimes the way they deliver the messages can be a little campy. I thought this one was very mature, very intelligent, very adult, while still being reachable to children. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think this one was so well done. And I mean, again, yeah, the animation from 2007 to now, you can't tell the difference between this film and what was the most recent one that came out? Encanto wasn't Pixar, right? No, that was Disney. Shoot, what was the most recent Pixar film?
I gotta look it up. I probably didn't watch it, but I gotta look it up.
Turning Red?
That was the movie that people said Boo was in.
Yes, that's the one where she had a related cousin.
I feel like that one is like doesn't really count as much because it like they tried to advertise it well, and I feel like they did not do a good job advertising that one. But yeah, I feel like, Ratatouille really just like is such a smart film that it can go beyond just animation. It can go into the category of like truly artistic, truly well-made films, visually. And Alejandro, you were talking about like the sounds in the kitchen earlier, and the one that really popped into my head was the flames getting turned on in the oven, and that sound, like when I heard that, it brings me back to, I'm so sorry, Remy is losing it. It brought me back to every single time I've turned on the stove in the oven, and you just hear that like whoosh, and it's that like, it's that intense sound, and you're like, okay, ready to cook now, and I feel like, all around, audio, music, visually, storyline, she's biting my foot right now. It all just really, it like just truly artistic, truly ahead of its time, timeless. Like I cannot say enough good things about this film. I would also like to point out that I was told to have a drink during this, and I'm the only one having an actual drink. So,
I have a drink.
I have a.
What is that? Sparkling soda. Water?
It's a Truly.
Oh, okay, sure.
I've been drinking Dr. Pepper this whole time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always the one that has a drink.
I just feel like I was like hoodwinked a little bit.
Oh, no. I drink all the time on this, whether it's a Truly or whether it's like an old fashioned, I always have something. So you're not alone. Alejandro, any last minute thoughts on Ratatouille? Anything you want to add?
Not much, other than the fact that like I enjoyed it. I was in culinary arts for about 5 to 6 years, so actually, getting to experience a film out there eventually at some point and seeing a reflection of some kind of comedic genius and animation and something you actually do or kind of passionate at the time was really cool. Once again, I am a sucker for rodents, so seeing a rat kind of just kick ass and being so diverse in his palette was also amazing. Other than that, it was just a fantastic film, so I definitely have to say I liked it. So my 4 out of 5 could be a 5 out of 5, huh?
Should be.
Well, that's great. Like I said, this film was amazing. I was surprised by it. I think everything in it was beautiful. It was amazing. It made me want to eat. It made me want to go to Paris. It made me want to do everything all in between. It made me want to jump between barges, like on a boat. It made me want to go to the deepest sewers, to like the highest, like to the Eiffel Tower, the top of the Eiffel Tower. And it was beautiful. I thought this film was great. Like there, besides, what I've commented on, there's really nothing I would be like, don't watch it because of this. I would like everybody who hasn't watched it or who hasn't seen it needs to see this movie, because I feel like it's just got a lot to teach, a lot to say. But yeah, the food is really great. They got some scallops. You got your soup that gets made. You got your ratatouille that gets made. You have your filet mignon that gets made, and all the other freaking amazing, wonderful, yummy dishes that get made throughout this. So with that being said, and by the way, here's the menu. Before she goes over the menu, Nikki, I just want to point out and stuff, I don't know if you have the picture up.
Oh God.
But me and Nikki know each other because I was
me, I met like thousands of people a day, so
yeah, so I met Nikki. Well, I took a picture with Nikki because Nikki, much like Alejandro, used to work at Universal Studios Hollywood and used to sing in the Frog Choir in Harry Potter, in the wonderful world of Harry Potter. And I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. I dress up, do all that stuff. But I have a picture of her and me taking a picture of her and my boss. And it was funny because we didn't know until like at the very beginning of this before we started. And I was like, holy shit, that's you. And so like, yeah, it was insane. So
I feel like you didn't even know when you saw me. Like, so the way we found out was Alejandro was like, oh yeah, I was training people at work today. And I asked him, oh, what do you do for work? He goes, oh, I work, you're retail, right? I think he said it was retail. I work retail at Harry Potter. And I was just like, oh, so you know me? Or I asked, how long? He's like, oh, like 7 years. I was like, so you know me? He's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, well, you would have heard me all the time. And then, so I said, I did Frog Choir. And then all of a sudden you pulled the picture out. And I feel like you didn't even know until like we had that conversation. And then you found that picture so fast. Like, how did you
So you know how iPhones you can look up like a location, and like
Yeah.
I just did
I did not know
Universal
that,
and
actually.
did that, and I was like, "Brrr," and then I was like, because I've taken a picture with the frog choir before, and it was a long time ago. But you're like, I did it from opening till quarantine, and I was like, let me check. So then I checked. There you are.
I have a specific set of skills.
I do, right. I look up, right, yeah. So
That was
anyway,
so fast that you found
isn't
that.
it? Well, you
Wait,
all
do
were
we
talking,
have,
and I was
do
like,
we have the picture?
so if I sent it to Steph, if she pulls it up, she can pull it
Okay.
up. But yeah, it's
That
definitely
was
us.
crazy. Like, yeah, it's, I mean, you showed me, it's totally me. Like when you pulled that up, I was just like, wow. And that was 2017.
Yeah.
So that was 5 years
insane.
ago, me. I like,
Yeah.
so much younger.
Anyway, for you all, it's been wonderful to have both of you on this show. Oh yeah, and then Nikki has, go ahead, really quick.
Okay, I had to. I'm so proud of this item. So I was telling them, there was this one night I was like feeling kind of sad for some reason, and I was I think I was just sitting on my couch, and I decided to scroll through eBay because I do this when I get sad. I look for Ratatouille items on eBay or Etsy, and I'd actually heard of this item before, but it's really hard to find. It's actually Disney made this. It is the Ratatouille menu. And it's with recipes from Chef Thomas Keller, which if you don't know Thomas Keller, he is renowned for his cooking, has Michelin star rated restaurants. And it has the recipe for the ratatouille that they make in there. I bought the last one on eBay. So any Ratatouille fans, good luck finding it. It was really expensive.
Way to go, Nikki.
Totally worth
Way
it.
to go.
Sorry, I can't be myself without having every
God.
Ratatouille item possible. But it's the coolest thing. I mean, it really they like Disney made this specifically for the film. It's the smallest thing ever. But I mean, I'm gonna make all those recipes. So if anybody wants my address, they want to come over, try them out, do my guinea pigs, let me know.
Yummy. That's so awesome. That's just so awesome. Well, I'd like to thank Nikki and Alejandro for being on this wonderful review of Ratatouille. Before we go, Alejandro, where can we find you on the socials?
Big entertainment content social dweeb. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook under IAMCOWIE. That's I am Cowie, where I post daily content.
Great. And I love your content that you post because it makes me happy at work when I'm really depressed.
Thank you.
And then, yes, it's great. And then Nikki, where can we find you on the socials or anywhere else?
I mean, I'm on a bit of a hiatus right now. I was singing in LA for like 10 years. So, but you know, when I do start back up again, I will be posting on my social media. Nikki Monney on Instagram. I had a food vlog for a while, actually. So hoping to start that up again eventually. I just need to find a new partner, and I will be back singing for sure. I will always sing. So yeah, just that's where I'll be.
Yay! Well, thank you all again so much for being on the show. So my name is Jordyn Orozco. You can find me on Instagram at cityofstars13. Not much going on right now, but there will be soon. So please keep an eye out. So if you haven't already known, please subscribe to our YouTube and our Twitch. All of our platforms are at Nom Talk Network. Also, if you missed today's showing or anything, everything's in podcast form now. So you can listen to it on any podcast streaming platform that you have. Like I said, everything's Nom Talk Network in there. So we have Nom Watch Review, Nom Watch Binges, and all that stuff that happens on there. So tune into our next show, which is going to be tomorrow, the 29th, with our host, actually, Alejandro, who's here. They're going to be doing the 1982 version of Blade Runner, which is turning 40. That's actually so exciting. I'm so excited for that. And it'll be wonderful and amazing. So until then, it is wonderful to see you all. I'm your host, Jordyn Orozco again, and you have a nomorific day. Goodbye.
Bye, Rennie. Bye, Rennie.